Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are so pleased to have on the show with us Jim Floros, founder and CEO of Floros and Associates. Full disclosure, yes, it's that Jim Floros, local iconic community leader, just stellar career at the San Diego Food Bank. Before that, at the Byrne Institute, and I'm just again honored to call him, as I've called some of my guests today, colleague and friend. Jim, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you, and you said it just like I asked you, so nice job with it.
It was really good. We had to do some revisions on that, of course, as we know on that. How's family doing?
Doing well. My mom's older, in her early 90s and going through some health issues, but that's kind of part of the journey. But my boys are doing great. Johnny's working here for Loma Media, doing great video, and then my youngest wanted to work on Capitol Hill, and that's what he's doing. He's working for a U.S. senator right out of college and living the life. So things are, knock on wood, going well.
How exciting is that? That's terrific. Jim, 37-year career in community, advocate, the last 28 as a CEO, Byrne Institute, and, of course, the San Diego Food Bank. Did your folks inspire you to be in this community space? Is it something that you found out on your own, or was there some inspiration that got you into this?
Sometimes things just happen to you, and I was in the right place at the wrong time or wrong place at the right time. I came out of college from the University of San Diego, degree in international relations. Wanted to do PR marketing, and I couldn't get a job doing PR marketing because I had no experience. I had no resume. I had no writing samples or portfolio. I hadn't done an internship, so somebody suggested that I do an internship at a nonprofit, get some experience, and then I could go about my business. And then I remember him saying, watch out, they'll suck you dry, because nonprofits, and they'll take just about anybody. So I ended up at Project Concern International.
PCI, right.
And was doing the PR marketing stuff, and then they found out I was successful at fundraising, so to heck with PR, you're now a fundraiser. And then I fell in love with the whole idea of making the world a better place in the nonprofit way, and I wouldn't leave, so they finally said, well, we got to hire the guy because he won't leave. And so I stayed there about 8 years, and like I said, as you mentioned, I'm a career nonprofit guy right out of college.
Yeah, that's great. Was it easy to make the transition from PR marketing to fundraising, or that always was in your DNA anyway?
Well, I think so. Maybe it's my Greek heritage. I'm a bit of a salesman, and that's what really fundraising is. And when you're passionate about the cause, then the fundraising really is easy, because you're not asking for yourself, you're asking for the cause.
Right.
And you want to be successful, and if you're a type A personality like we all are, it kind of comes natural. And, PR marketing and fundraising really should go hand in hand anyway.
Right, yeah, without question, and, phenomenal careers at every one of those spaces there. And, one of the things, we were just bringing this up to your good friend and colleague of mine too, Peter Kallstrom, the CEO of the San Diego Workforce Partnership, the changing face, and you knew this through in the food bank without question. You and I talked about it many times on the show. The changing face of those in need is remarkable for those folks who aren't paying attention. It's not who you think it is. It's folks like us.
Well, and career nonprofit guy, so I know the model, the business model, the development part. But then when I came to the food bank, had no idea. Really didn't know much about food insecurity. And, nearly 500,000 people in San Diego County are food insecure. Who would have known that?
Right.
It's the kids that your kids are going to school with, but everybody's, too ashamed about it. And then when you get deeper into, food insecurity and hunger is just a symptom of a much larger problem. And it's people who they're stuck in the cycle of poverty, and they can't get out. And you're destined to repeat generation after generation. We found poor nutrition leads to poor educational outcomes. Education is the vehicle to bring people out of poverty. poor nutrition leads to poor health outcomes. So now obesity, diabetes, all these other issues. So these people really have two strikes against them from the get-go, and it's really difficult to break that cycle of poverty. And that is something that I think most people don't think about.
Yeah, there's no question about it, and we all need to sit there and help in this area because listen, San Diego is not the most inexpensive place to live. I should say. People are sometimes paycheck to paycheck. You ran across this quite a bit at the food bank. And listen, that paycheck goes away. You're not too far away.
Well, most people are told you should have 6 months in case something happens. Well, guess what happened? COVID.
Right.
And the number of people who were just devastated because of the pandemic, especially we have such a community so based in the service industry and tourism and all that. We went from feeding 350 to 600,000 people a month, like overnight. It was crazy.
Right, exactly. And you had to be ready to pivot, and you didn't have a choice because that's the sort of the word that goes along with the pandemic and so forth. We're chatting with Jim Floros. He's the founder and CEO of Floros and Associates, long-time career, 37-year career in nonprofits here in San Diego. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. So, before we tee it up to what you're doing now, with your new group and all that business, where are we with the sort of the state of nonprofits in San Diego County?
Well, people, it's always bothered me that people give nonprofits a bad rap, and they say, people who can't cut it in the real world go to nonprofit. And there are some nonprofits that maybe that is true. Right. There are some that could use a lot of help, and that's kind of what I'm doing now.
Right.
But nonprofits is a major economic driver and a sector, and really, you can't depend on the government for all these programs, nor should we, because the thing about nonprofits, we're held to a higher standard. We're so under the microscope, donors, the media, government officials, IRS, or what have you. So we're held to a higher standard. So really good nonprofits are better run than most for-profits.
Without question.
They're more effective. They're more impactful. So, that's a misnomer that somehow, you can't cut in the real world, then you come to nonprofit. And I was involved in a CEO group for many years, SAGE. It's kind of like Vistage, and they have their models like 10 for-profit CEOs and one nonprofit CEO. And I was the nonprofit CEO in my group. The food bank was bigger than 3/4 of them, more staff, better culture, more effectiveness, more efficiency, more dependability, and a lot of the for-profits are just trying to make a profit. And I teased them. I said, I'm going to write a book. You should run your for-profit like a nonprofit because we have higher standards.
Well, it's funny about that. I was talking to someone on one of the previous Spotlight shows. There was a great article, and I'm not sure how many years ago it was. You probably know who the guy is, and talked about all these for-profit CEOs that had morphed into the nonprofit. And the gentleman, you're going to know who he is because he was, I should know him. He was in my field and he was your field in PR. And he worked for a major national worldwide agency and then went to run AARP. And I can't think of his name right now, for God's sake. But this article dealt with him, the Red Cross, who had come from someone that was making millions at a for-profit. And they all said the same thing. I didn't think it would be so difficult.
It is hard.
It is. Well, it went through all the things that you and I know, having worked with nonprofits, is the fact that, you can't sit there and go and call these 15 people to do the job that you need done because there's one of them, which means you need to do it, okay?
Well, yeah, exactly. And you're doing more with less.
Right.
You don't have huge resources to be able to hire really, you're not getting a Harvard MBA probably at a nonprofit. So, that is a challenge. And then, there's a fundamental, maybe it's a great thing and maybe it's a flaw of nonprofits. And the journey of a nonprofit CEO is unique. It's like none other. And so you work for a board of directors who are not experts in what you do. And they are, experts in what they do, but they're not necessarily, a nonprofit model. And they're volunteers. So they have lives and careers and hobbies and all kinds of other things going on in their life. Yet they make the most important decisions of the organization. And so for a nonprofit CEO, you have to be very clever, and you not only do you manage down, but you manage up. And that's not in a book anywhere. There's a finesse and an art of doing that, but you can't have a great organization without a great board. So it is the journey of a nonprofit CEO. It is tough.
Well, you bring up an interesting point on this as well. For those for-profit board members, not only do they get paid a nice little stipend for be on that, they tend to be in that space as well, and that's their job. And you're right, the nonprofit board members, listen, who are dedicated to what they want to do, right? And they're giving up time. To your point, they got a million different jobs in this stuff. Challenge being is that do you really understand the business? And now you got to sit there and navigate that. And like any boards, there's some that get it and there's some that don't. I always tell this, and I've been on a bunch of boards. If you're doing the right thing and you've hired the right CEO, how do we support you and get out of the way?
Exactly.
Because listen, and we'll give some advice and all that business and so forth, but we hired the right person. They know what they're doing. And listen, yes, we have to have fiscal responsibility and all that aspect of it, but get out of the way.
Get out of the way. Well, I always said, nonprofit 101 is the board has one employee, and that's the CEO, and you hold them accountable, good or bad or indifferent. And you see boards where board members are doing an end around on the CEO and doing things on their own without letting the CEO know. That's really dangerous. We got board members that want to get into the weeds and help run the day-to-day. That's a bad thing. You want to do a good enough job where you keep your board at the 30,000-foot level. And I always told my boards, it's 25% fiduciary. Make sure everything adds up. Look at the financials. Make sure that the business is running correctly. And then 25% visioning or strategic planning, so it'll help us create the roadway ahead. And then 50% fundraising. And, anybody who's on a nonprofit board, if you didn't sign up to do fundraising, you really shouldn't be on that board.
Yeah.
Because,
spot on.
And I come from fundraising. The number one thing a nonprofit does is raise money. And people say, well, it's the program. Well, the programs don't exist if you don't have the money to do that.
Yeah. It's a crack up. And what kills me about some of this stuff, Jim, is when people think, well, why is the CEO making so much money? Why, you think because they work for a nonprofit, they should be getting a nonprofit as in no money? Are you out of your mind? It's a business. And you need to pay them handsomely. I always give pushback to people.
Well, and the San Diego Food Bank was a $100 million corporation.
Yeah.
And of course I didn't make money like I would in the private sector, but I mean, it's a $100 million corporation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's no question. But whether it's $100 million, it's $400,000,
right.
Those CEOs work very hard, and so forth, and the work they do in that. Jim, when we come back from break, I want to talk about the new business.
Right.
It's not really that new for you. You've always been doing some great consulting with nonprofits on it, but you got a little bit of a twist to that aspect of it. One chat with that. And then, as you well know, you've been on the show many times, what can our listeners do to help support your efforts?
Fantastic.
You bet. We're going to be right back with Jim Floros, the founder and CEO of Floros and Associates. And yes, it's that Jim Floros, a longtime community leader. His last gig was at the San Diego Food Bank, where he just did remarkable work. We're going to hear more about his new business. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing great things to San Diegans for more than 60 years. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing great things to San Diego for more than 60 years. We were with and are with the, I'm going to call you the inimitable, because no one can really imitate you.
No one can spell that.
That's right. I'm sure they can. Maybe they don't understand it. Jim Floros. He is the founder and CEO of Floros and Associates. Storied career working as the CEO of nonprofits in San Diego County. Talk about what Jim Floros and Associates is doing. What products do you have? What services do you do? Talk about this new sessions thing you're doing.
Yeah. So, when I was back at the Burn Institute, and we had built that to be probably the top burn foundation in North America, I had a lot of other burn foundations across North America that were asking for advice. And a lot of them were being run by firefighters or being run by, burn nurses, and that's not their expertise. And then I finally realized, I should probably get paid for this. And this is something I thought I would do in my last chapter of my career. So in 2008, established Floros and Associates, and then now, doing that full time. And I love it because I love coaching, I love mentoring, and there are a lot of good consultants out there, but there's also consultants out there that have never really been in the trenches, have never worked for a nonprofit, have never led a nonprofit through COVID. So that whole walk the walk, talk the talk thing, we were certainly that in 37 years. So while most consultants deal with development, primarily fundraising, which I do, and that's where I came from. But I'm full blown, widespread, anything nonprofit business model, A to Z, soup to nuts, and it's so much fun. It really is, because you have a lot of great agencies and a lot of great causes, but they need a little TLC. Maybe they don't really embrace that nonprofit business model. The board doesn't really know how they're supposed to function. So I'm doing a lot of that. Yeah.
Now, do you work with other groups? USD Nonprofit Institute, as you know, I was involved with USD Souls and with the San Diego Foundation, Leashtag Foundation. There's some great groups that work with nonprofits.
No, a lot of that's in the works. I've only been doing the consulting full time since March.
Right.
But I'm working towards the USD as a USD alum. I probably should get more involved with that.
Right.
And I think I'm going to be a speaker at their symposium in January.
Yep.
So yeah, just trying to get kind of involved with that. I was. When I had my day job at the food bank, I was just too busy to do any of that. So now I'm starting to reach out to do that. And, just launched the website and LinkedIn. And so all my clients now have really been just all referrals.
One of the things you brought up in the first segment, and it's so spot on, I brought this up in a recent interview with someone and talked about the fallacy that nonprofits don't contribute to the economy of the region. And I said that can be about far from the truth as possible.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, I mean, it is. It's a business. And, I've told the story so many times that, my staffs and my board and my family, their eyes roll as he's telling that story again. But so I'm in my first nonprofit job at Project Concern. I'm about 25, 26, and my new boss is from IBM World Headquarters. And they had a program back then where they'd have a retiring executive heading towards retirement. They'd pay their salary for 2 or 3 years. They'd farm them out to nonprofits and teach them about the nonprofit or the real world, right?
Right.
And so he's from IBM World Headquarters, Frank Klein, one of the most impactful mentors I've ever had. And he sat me down one day. I said, Jim, don't fall in love with your charity. Businesses do business things for business reasons. Their philanthropy is tied to their organizational goals. You help them achieve those goals, they'll help you. Otherwise, they'll go find another charity because there's 10,000 worthwhile causes. And I've used that my whole career. I've heard hundreds of times from people in the private sector, you know what, Jim, we've never heard that from anybody from a nonprofit. All you guys usually say is, oh, it's a good cause and please support us. But there are lots of good causes. So everything's a business relationship to me, especially in the corporate community. I give as good as I get. It's ROI, and it's developing a partnership. And if you do it right, it's a long-term partnership. And basically, that's what it should be. I mean, it's not just take. You give as good as you get.
I want to brag about Jim on this here, and it was hard for me to do that because we're two close friends, and any of us say good things about each other. Then we have to go check ourselves into some mental institute because
I think so.
We've gone off the rails. But what he just said was spot on. And one of the things I loved working with Jim on, and I was honored to be in charge of community and public relations and spokesperson for the Union Tribune for many years. And Jim got it. Jim understood that the Union Tribune was not a not-for-profit, at least not intentionally, and we needed to make money. And Jim was one of the ones that said, listen, we need to have some skin in this game, whether it was the Burn Institute or the food bank. And if we're not showing we have skin in the game, you're going to go to other nonprofits that have some skin in the game.
Well, yeah, and if everybody, there's some really big name nonprofits in town, and I talked to their CEO, and they asked for advice. I go, well, you're going to have to pay for your media. Well, we don't do that. I was like, what do you mean you don't do that? They're a business too, and you can leverage your media buys. And
yes.
When I was at the food bank, we leveraged our media buys 8, 9, 10 to 1 for every dollar spent. If you get it's free, your PSA showing up at 2:00 in the morning, and they want to help you, and they always have extra inventory, but they're a business. And then this one individual, who I won't name, I said, you got to pay for your media. Well, I don't have the budget for that. Well, you get corporate sponsors to pay for it. You put them on TV and you promote their brand and you help further their business. Well, I don't have any of those. And it's like, you're a big national organization. Everybody knows your name. You don't have that, and you don't think that way. And some of my best friends are all media reps, radio, TV, and they've complimented me and said, Jim, you're like the only one we know that actually gets it, and you bridge your marketing media strategy to your development program, and we don't see other nonprofits that do that.
Yeah, and that is true. Now, what started to happen is, toward the end of my career at the UT, some of the nonprofits were now starting to get it, because we basically said to them, listen, understand, we like your cause. To your point, there's a million great causes, but to be honest with you, we're going to choose those nonprofits to partner with that have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Now, we're not talking about breaking the bank where now you have to give all your money, now you can't be a business, but you've now demonstrated that you have stepped up to the plate to do it. But you're so spot on. That's just great advice. That's smart advice. And money's a choice. I always should say, you learned this from Steve Covey. Well, you know what? You choose to spend your money this way, and that's fine,
Yeah.
But you could have spent it this way. And your example is spot on, because that's exactly what we used to do at the Union Tribune. You give us X, you're getting tenfold back.
Absolutely. I was a very young CEO at the age of 33. And a good friend of mine, she's still a very good close friend of mine, and she was at, it was Clear Channel back then, and now it's iHeart, and she wanted an event I was doing at the Burn Institute, and she would want this event, and this is what you're going to get for free. But if you can bring a little money, and then it was, like you said, it was like tenfold, and I'm like, the light bulb comes on, and I'm like, oh, and they're a business. Help them, and help them help you, because they do have extra inventory. You can get preferred spots and be around news, and maybe even have your cause mentioned in broadcast if you can really pull that off. That is huge. And a lot of nonprofits just don't get that. They don't understand it's a business.
Yeah. Well, the ones that do are going to thrive even more, and that, and that's going to be part of the work you're doing on that. And that's just some great advice on that. So, Jim, what can our listeners do to help support you?
Well, and just to do the last piece, so the slogan for Floros and Associates is for-profit solutions for nonprofits.
Yeah, I like that.
That's it right there.
Did you get that from me?
Yeah, probably. I stole it probably from you were dreaming. How they can help me is, everybody's involved with a nonprofit.
Right.
And every nonprofit can be better. I mean, even the best nonprofits can be better. So, I'm a local guy. I've got a lot of contacts. I think I have 4,900 followers on LinkedIn. So I made it my job to know everybody. So connecting people so they can develop mutually beneficial relationships. People who are on boards of directors and you're frustrated because your organization's not moving forward, that is my sweet spot. And I can come in and help you build your board, develop your fundraising program and all that. And, it's a great sector, but it needs some love.
Yeah, exactly. What's a website?
FlorosAssociates.com.
Very good.
FlorosAssociates.com, and follow us on LinkedIn.
And your phone number?
619-890-7181.
And Jim says call between 2 and 4 in the morning, and he'll be right there for you.
Perfectly, just the same time as you do.
Okay, very good. Jim, always a pleasure chatting with you. Again, it was great working with you in your previous roles. It'll be even more fun working with you in this new one.
Love you, brother. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, my pleasure. We're chatting with Jim Floros, founder and CEO of Floros and Associates. Jim, longtime stellar community leader. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing great things to San Diego for more than 60 years. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.